Well, we know the National League West is going to be tight, but if the Diamondbacks ever got a bullpen, it might be totally bonkers.
You are Locked On Diamondbacks, your daily Arizona Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans, and hello, Diamondback fans, and welcome to a Locked On MLB crossover between Locked On Diamondbacks and Locked On MLB. I am one of your hosts. I'm Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully. I'm the host of the Locked On MLB podcast, and we're doing a throwback. We're doing an old-fashioned. It's a return of our crossing over because right there, right over there, if you're watching on the YouTubes, on the left-hand side is my co-host for the show. Please introduce myself with your lovely hair and your fantastic cap. Introduce yourself, please.
Thank you. Miller Thomas, host of the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast. I got the Coyotes basketball crossover jersey on. I got my AZ hat on, so we're repping the state as always. Follow us wherever you stream podcasts, of course. Locked On Diamondbacks, Locked On MLB, all podcasting platforms. Check us out on YouTube, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button, please.
And rest in peace, Arizona Coyotes. Hey, follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter or whatever they're calling it these days, and on Instagram. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Now, let's just quickly, for listeners of Locked On MLB, let's bring out the trivia question because we talked a little bit about the Colorado Rockies, the one team that is not in it in the National League West. I said,
Big
what
news for them today, too, Sully.
I know, but let's say what the trivia question was: what poor schmuck has the most number of innings as a member of the Colorado Rockies? And I got a couple of guesses on it. Hoy 2874 guessed Pedro Astacio, which is a great guess. Incorrect. Big John 08865 got it correct. It was Aaron Cook.
Oh,
Poor Aaron Cook. You know what? He was a major leaguer and pitched more innings as a Rocky than any pitcher in Rocky history. And let's be honest, that's an achievement. You know, he pitched for the Colorado Rockies for 10 seasons from 2002 to 2011. He pitched for the least likable Red Sox team in their history, the 2012 Bobby Valentine year. Made the All-Star team in 2008, where, you know, I'm not a big win-loss record guy, but he was 16-9 with an ERA under 4, pitching mainly in Coors Field. And there you go. He started one of the games in the World Series for the Rocks in 2007. So there you go. Almost a Rocky for life, save for the 18 games he pitched for Bobby Valentine. But there you go. There you go. So but let's talk about the other teams in the NL West right now. You were at the game. You were at the game between Los Angeles and the Dbacks. Not as the final score was 8-1.
Yeah.
It felt closer than that.
Because it mostly was. It wasn't really until like Jose Castillo came in those last couple innings where it really got blown out. But Gallen was like fine throughout the game, kept the game close for the most part through those first few innings. But yeah, it really got away at the end there when Castillo came in.
Yeah, I mean, it was a game where, you know, the usual suspects, you know, Ohtani gets a couple of hits, Betts got 3 hits, Freddie Freeman got 4 hits, Will Smith, not the pitcher, not the dude who slapped Chris Rock. Is that amazing? That's who he is now. I call him Louisville Smith of the Dodgers because we can't have too many. There are too many Will Smiths. He's from Louisville. Call him Louisville Smith. He sounds like a badass card shark. You know, the offense just went crazy. Smith had a couple of hits for the Rocks today. Marte didn't start. I don't understand because he's been red hot since coming off the IL. Why are you resting him in a game against Los Angeles? Is there something I missed there?
That's a great point, Sully. Because in the game before, we had Lourdes Gurriel, our hottest hitter at the plate right now. He sat the previous game coming off a grand slam in game two.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't really understand why we sit our hottest players in a series of this magnitude, but that is what the D-backs are doing right now.
But I'm not going to let that rest. I'm really not going to let that rest because, you know, yes, I know he's coming off an injury, but he has been terrific since coming back. These are head-to-head games with the LA Dodgers. These are more than just, well, all games are equal and all. No, they're not actually. They're not all equal. When you are trying to make up games and to make up space in your division and you're going up against the king, you put your best team on there. You don't say, well, this is our scheduling. Marte is going to have a day off. Schedule your day. Where are they off to next? Where's their
The
next?
Giants are off to San Fran after this. Continue
Okay.
the NL West gauntlet.
And yes, and the Giants are a divisional rival. These are the Dodgers, and you have a chance to win a series against the Dodgers.
Yes.
Making up those games if you're trying to climb out of the hole that you're in. They're trying to they're a good quality team, the D-backs, but they still, I'm sure they have images of a division title dancing in their head, or at least a good solid wild card spot. You have a chance psychologically to win a series against Los Angeles, and you sit one of your best hitters. I'm someone's got to explain that to me. Someone's got to explain why that's a smart move.
Sully, you're preaching to the choir here because not even like just this series, but there's been other series where we go against like the NL East, and we know how important those series are as well because we were tied the final day of the regular season last year with two NL East teams. So those series are as important to me as these NL West series. And we've seen times where the D-backs coming off an off day, we're sitting like a Geraldo Perdomo or like a Josh Naylor, those really big series. And it's been a pattern that I've seen from the D-backs manager and Torey Lovullo throughout this year when it's like, why are we sitting our hottest players in these big series, especially when it's like off an off day or off a day where they had like a 2 home run performance? Like it always feels like we sit our players at the worst possible moments in the schedule. I just wish we had a little bit more gut feel where it's like, yes, this might have been a scheduled day off for Gurriel 3 weeks ago, but he's a streaky player. He's one of those guys where it's like 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off for him. If he's peaking, if he's at the peak of his streak, coming off a grand slam, let's not sit him in a series against the LA Dodgers where you're right there. You win this series, you win 3 out of 4, you're right there in the NL West mix. And unfortunately, a split doesn't feel as good as taking 3 out of 4 from the LA Dodgers.
And in the last 7 days, Marte has 3 homers. His OPS is 1.181. He's slugging 790 over the last 7 days. Okay. So let's give him a breather. And by the way, he played anyway. He came off the bench. So it's not like he was sitting. If they had said, if he didn't play at all, and I know he's coming off of an injury, then we could sort of rationalize, do you know what? He may have been feeling something nagging. They may have said, you know what? We're not going to, we're take the, sit in the whirlpool, I would be less picky about this if he didn't play at all.
Yeah.
If I said, you know what, the trainer says we saw something, said, oh, okay, we're not going to risk it in a May game, but he played. So if he was healthy enough to play as the game was getting away, why was he not healthy enough to play the whole damn game?
Because it's never due to injury. It's always just due to a scheduled day off. Because if a D-backs player like Perdomo or Marte are not starting the game, I guarantee you, if it's a 3-run ball game, they're going to come in at some point off the bench because Torey's going to look at that platoon split. And whenever it's that, Vantage D-backs is going to bring them in the game because I think in the series recently, it was either Phillies or Braves. Torey went to Marte coming off the injury, and he said, you're going to play 2 out of 3 games in this series. Which ones do you want to play? Marte chose the first 2 games in the series. Torey should have went to Marte and told him, you're playing the first and the third game because the first 2 games of that series was both against right-handed pitchers. Marte is way better from the right side. And in that finale, there was a lefty going on the opposing team. And so Marte should have sat the second game, started the third game, but instead we put him in a more disadvantaged situation by having him hit from the left side of the plate from the first 2 games instead of him hitting from the left side in the first game and hitting from the right side in the third game. So I just think there's so many little like maneuvers that the D-backs have just done wrong throughout the year. I mean, I know you want to talk about the bullpen. I don't know if we're going to get into this in segment number one, but I have a lot to to go on the bullpen as well. But when it comes to the in-game lineup, there's been a lot of stuff that I haven't been happy with for sure.
Oh, in segment 2, we're talking about the bullpen.
Okay.
But I'll tell you another thing that I mean, like, there's no way you can plan for this, but you have a chance. They were starting Gonsolin. Okay, now Gonsolin turned out to be pretty good today, but again, Gonsolin's coming back from an injury plagued season, and he's not going to go deep. Okay, and it turned out to be a day where the Padres lost. Very unlikely loss to Colorado. The good work, Marquez, for getting your first win of the season there. And San Francisco's bullpen wet the bed in a very frustrating series for Giant fans in Minnesota, where the Twins out of nowhere have suddenly become, it's like Frankie Viola is back, and the Twins have won their last 8 games, and they've gone from should we fire the manager to now they're above 500. The D-backs could have gained ground on the entire division if they had, put the foot to the pedal. I know it's May, I know, but you know what? It's also these, one push to the metal game in May last year would have meant they were in the playoffs, and either the Braves or Mets would have been playing golf.
Yeah, Sully, you don't have to tell me what time period on the calendar it is because I do not care. I get as upset with these games that happen in the first half of the season as I do in the second half. Because like you just mentioned, last year we blew so many games in the first half of the season to the Braves, other series where it came back to haunt us in the second half because we lost the tiebreaker in the finale. And so I care about all these May and April series against NL East teams, against NL West teams. We're just giving series away and games away every day, it feels like. And so I care about these games, Sully. So you don't have to convince me that May games matter because we saw how important they were in 2024.
And it's important to get these games in the bank so you can keep track of your money. And speaking of your bank and keeping track of money, you ever check your bank account and wonder where'd all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. It's your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place so you can stop just managing your money and start building wealth. When I started using Monarch, I didn't realize how many subscriptions I had, how often I had sometimes 2 subscriptions to the same service. Now I budget smarter. I save more. Instead of juggling multiple apps, I can use Monarch to check my finances, track spending, and even make long-term goals. And I can manage money with my wife. It's smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money and use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year. I've talked a little bit this year about the fact that the Diamondbacks, they're obviously a talented team. I think Corbin Burns is off to a rough start, but I think that he will pitch to the back of his baseball card. I think that things like that will happen.
It looked good in his game 2 against the Dodgers. That was by far the most impressive start I've seen from Corbin Burns this season.
But how many games have we seen them? Like, they went through a stretch in that series between Tampa Bay and Atlanta where they lost 3 extra inning games in 4 days. How many times have they had games where their offense is just on fire, like that game 2 against LA, where they had the Marte home runs, and then suddenly, what was it? The Dodgers put was it a 7 spot or a 6 spot? A 6 spot in the 9th inning, capitalized by the Ohtani home run, but they scored 11 runs that game. And they lost. I mean, the bullpen, you can't hand the ball to this bullpen and have them lose all these walk-off games. lose all these. I'm like right there when they went on that stretch between Tampa Bay and Atlanta. If you just take that one game in Tampa, one game in Atlanta, and the 14-11 game, okay, take those 3 games and keep them in mind at the end of the year, because those are 3 right now that you're not going to be able to get back. And they're, they have a losing record in extra inning games. They have a losing record in 1-run games, which is not good.
Nope.
Which is not good at all. And they have to address that, because you can't sprinkle these games that are extraordinarily winnable and expect to hold on to be to play in the postseason.
Yeah, D-backs have lost games like the one against the Cubs where they score 10 runs in an inning, go on to lose. They've lost games where Eugenio Suarez, 4 home runs in a single game, we go on to lose. The D-backs bullpen, the back end, has not been good enough. It needs to be better. And there have been times where Torey Lovullo makes the right decisions and the bullpen hasn't been good enough. But I also believe Torey Lovullo has been the biggest issue to the D-backs bullpen this year, coming out of spring training, not naming a closer, not defining roles, throwing AJ Puck, Justin Martinez in non-save situations, 7th inning, 2 outs. Let's bring in our best reliever in J Mart just to get 1 out in the inning, instead of just using J Mart in closing situations. That would lessen the workload. That would lessen the burden on him. Having AJ Puck only coming out in the 8th inning as a setup man for Puck, and then having the trust in the Ryan Thompsons, the Jalen Beeks, the Ginkles to come through those other high leverage situations. There's been so many games this year where a D-backs reliever would come in, he walks 2, he gives up a couple hits, he just doesn't have it, but yet he has to still go out there and go after batter after batter. We see our 3-run lead go to a 2-run lead, and then it just dissipates. We saw that in game 2. Ginkle faces 6 batters in that game. There's been so many instances through that series stretch that you just mentioned, Sully, where you'll see a reliever like Jalen Beeks just face 2-3 batters, way too many. Ginkle faces 2-3 batters, way too many. It's just been a consistent issue with this D-backs team. There's relievers currently in the pen who I just don't understand, with the Mantipies, the Jose Castillos. We have better options right now in the minor leagues. Dre Jameson, Christian Mena had a great performance in that game too that the D-backs ended up losing. Why did we send him back down to the minors? I just don't understand the philosophy right now when it comes to this D-backs pen. And yes, it needs to be addressed. Adding like that St. Louis Cardinals closer, Ryan Hesley, that sounds like a nice addition. But my biggest problem is, does Torey Lovullo actually know how to utilize his guys? Does he know how to push the right buttons? Because that is my biggest concern. You can have as talented as a bullpen as you want, but if you don't have someone back there that knows how to captain the ship and execute the right players in certain situations, I don't know if it really matters. So right now, yes, the D-backs need to add more talent, but I also need Torey Lovullo to get better at picking who to choose and defining roles for each guy in the pen.
Let's address this for a second, though. I mean, this is Lovullo's 9th year, and he is first year in. They made the playoffs with him. They got to the division series. They won a pennant with him in just 2 years ago, and they actually had a better year last year in terms of win-loss record than the team that went to the World Series. He's not on the hot seat, is he? Or is he just, I mean, like Joe, you could have a Hall of Fame manager like Joe Torre, who also was not always the greatest at his bullpen management, except for, he knew to hand the ball to Mariano Rivera in the 9th inning. That's a, wow, good thinking, Joe. Good thinking there. But he also made some very curious pitching decisions throughout his time. But you don't think that Lovullo is on the hot seat, do you?
Well, on Millard's personal hot seat, he would be, but is he on the D-backs hot seat? No, because his relationship with Mike Hazen, they are thick as thieves. Both guys come from the Boston Red Sox organization. Both guys came up throughout the same time, spent multiple years over there, and they came together over to Arizona. So the hot seat for Lovullo, I don't think so. 2018, it was either 2018 or 2019. You go back and look at the season. That was a team destined for the postseason. They hit September. They had a major collapse. Last year, the D-backs started off the first half very slow. Then they became one of the hottest teams in the second half. But then guess what? September hit, another collapse. 2023, they were great in the first half, but I think we forgot. They kind of backed their way into the postseason in the second half.
I don't forget that. Yeah, I don't forget that at all. You and I talked about that.
Yeah. So negative run differential. So when I look at the Lovullo era, yes, the World Series was nice, but I don't want to say fluky because you really beat those teams in the postseason, but the
Yes.
way that you got into the postseason, you don't feel great about it. The way last season ended with the September collapse doesn't make you feel good. And then now you have a resume of multiple September collapses. Like, how many times does a team need to be on the precipice of a postseason and then fall apart the last 3 weeks before you have to look at your manager and say, there's something concerning here. So this D-backs team, as talented on paper as any team I believe in Major League Baseball. Yes, the bullpen needs to be a little bit better, but you look at that rotation. The lineup led the league in runs scored last season. Like, you had the best offense last year and didn't make the postseason. So I just think this team is so talented, and if it misses out on the postseason, like, we need to have real uncomfortable conversations about the D-backs management, not the GM, but the D-backs coaching staff. We need to have real conversations if this team misses out on the postseason 2025.
All right. Well, when we come back, we're going to talk about the National League West because there are 4 teams there that could make it very interesting, and a 5th team that has a fan base that we all need to salute.
But hey, if you're looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious, crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts, which each 1 ounce serving having 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. I got one of my favorite flavors right here next to me. The great thing about pistachios, Wonderful Pistachios, is that they come in so many different varieties. This one right here has the shells, but no salt. So I could still get that cracking feeling with my pistachios, but a little bit healthier. But if you want the salted, they have it. If you want salted no shell, they have it. They also have like some crazy flavors with a little spice kicked in as well. That's why I love Wonderful Pistachios. They're healthy, they're delicious, they have protein, the perfect snack before the gym. So get snacking, get cracking with a snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more.
The San Diego Padres, as we're recording this, are 25-14. They lost to the Rocks, but obviously they played well against the Rocks. They just lost 1 game. They have a 641 winning percentage right now, which would be in first place in every other division in baseball, including the National League East. And it gives you a second place finish in the National League West. Los Angeles is on top. San Francisco, even with their 3-game sweep by the Minnesota Twins over the weekend, have a better winning percentage than the Cubs, than the Mariners, and the New York Yankees. And the D-backs are above 500
Barely.
and are just a few bullpen collapses away from being right in there as well,
They could
and
be
are
the
certainly
best
in the
team in the
wild card.
division. Yeah, they could be like leading this division on some of those bullpen games that we've seen in the last few weeks.
Obviously you have the Dodgers and Padres
Hmm.
are the 2-headed monster at the top of this division, but the Giants are the interlopers. The
Mhm.
Giants are the surprise guests at this dinner party. How much of a fluke do you think the Giants are in terms of we are about a quarter of the way through the season? We'll be at the 1/3 mark in just a couple of weeks, which is when you can really start looking at the standings. Is this just a good month and a half for the Giants, or is this a team that could really be a wild card contender for this season?
No, I think they're a real contender. The Giants, when we did the NL West roundtable, I was in on the Giants over. I thought this was going to be a frisky, dark horse wildcard team that we had to watch out for. I didn't think they were going to win the division, but I thought they were going to be a legitimate team to watch out for that third wildcard spot. They added Willie Adames, which was a legit power bat shortstop to the middle of that lineup. I honestly thought they had one of these stronger rotations on paper if everything worked out, because you had a guy like Robbie Ray coming back, who's won a
Mhm.
former Cy Young. Logan Webb is like flirting with the Cy Young the last few years. Wasn't that big on Justin Verlander, but Jordan Hicks I didn't mind, Kyle Harrison, and now you're actually getting contributions from guys like Jung Ho Lee, who we forgot was just a major bust last season, but signed to a big contract coming from overseas. And so they're finally getting some offensive contributions from the Jung Ho Lees, from the Willie Adamases, guys like even Mike Yastrzemski are starting to
Oh,
turn
yes.
up.
I
And
love Yaz.
yeah, Yaz is finally, he's back to having that power. So I like this Giants team. Do I think they could win the World Series? No. But do I think they're a team to watch out for? And then maybe we get to the deadline and they get a little bit more frisky. Maybe they add a big splash from one of those pending free agents coming up this offseason. I would take the Giants seriously as a team, as a playoff contender, as a wild card contender, and then we'll see if they add anybody once the deadline rolls around.
You make a great point in both Robbie Ray and with Jung Hoo Lee that sometimes you can't, especially when you have someone signed to a multi-year deal, you can't always judge it based on their first impression. Lee flopped was a flop last year, and Ray was a complete non-factor.
Yeah.
Well, right now Ray is pitching like he is an all-star, and Lee is the catalyst of the lineup right now. By the way, Matt Cain was a pitcher for the Giants when they won the 3 World Series. He actually was hurt in the 2014 World Series, but he was actually the ace of the 2012 championship and was a really good pitcher on the 2010 team. And Giant fans will remember he basically had to pitch a perfect game to get a win because he lost so many 2-1, 1-0 games. And Matt Cain got the worst run support you ever saw, even when they were winning. And boy, oh boy, is Logan Webb Matt Cain 2.0 right now. This is why you don't look at win-loss records. His win-loss record is 4-3. His ERA is 2.60. He is leading the league in innings pitched. He has 65 strikeouts and 55 and a third innings and only 14 walks. He's only let up 2 home runs the entire season. I mean, he is an all-star. He's a legitimate all-star this year. And of course, his final record will probably be 10-11. And people will just look at the win-loss record, will say, like, oh, he was mediocre. I say we got to the point where we just need to eliminate the win-loss record when we list the starting pitchers and just have what their average start is. That tells you more. What is an average Logan Webb start? He's 9 starts. He's those 55 innings. So he's going to be going pretty deep into a game. He's going to be close to. He's giving you close to 6 innings a start, and I think it's terrific. I mean, you're seeing their bullpen. They're figuring out what their bullpen is. Walker's been up and down, and Doval had an up and down season last year, but he's finding his role, and I think that. While I like to say things like, the manager should just use the relievers in the best situation, I talked about this show yesterday. These are human beings, and sometimes you like to know what your role is. Sometimes you like to go and define what your roles are. Even now, it doesn't necessarily mean, the tyranny of what I call the tyranny of the save, which is you only use your best relievers in a save situation, and you pull what Buck Showalter did in that where they had. He had God. Why am I not remembering his name? He was Britain. He didn't use Britain in the wild card game, and then they let in poor Ubaldo Jimenez to let up the walk-off homer. You don't do that madness, but you do a little bit like what Francona did when he was managing both the Red Sox and Cleveland, where he would mix and match where he used his best relievers. But everyone had their defined roles, and I think they have their defined roles in San Francisco. And like you said, they could probably use some of that in Arizona right now.
Yeah, we need to get it because, you look at the Giants bullpen and outside of Ryan Walker, it's a lot of sub-2 ERA guys. Rogers, Doval, Randy Rodriguez.
Shelby Miller.
Shelby Miller's been very good for the Dbacks this season. He had one chance to be the closer. He blew the save, and then he hasn't been given another save opportunity since. Kevin Ginkel is coming off the injured list, throwing 6 out of 10 games, going against game 2 against the Dodgers. And of course, has to face 6 batters, gets lit up. It's like, let's have a little bit more consistency with the bullpen. I would like to see Shelby Miller back as the closer. I love Kevin Ginkel, but whenever we tried to make Kevin Ginkel the closer, it is just not his job. It is not his role. It's never worked out. Put Ginkel as the 8th inning guy. Give me Shelby as the 9th inning guy, and then go with Ryan Thompson, Jalen Binks as your 2 7th inning guys. With the way it's set up, we should have potentially Kendall Graveman back in the next few days, in the next week. He's with the Reno Aces. He didn't really pitch that much last season, but before the prior few years, Kendall Graveman was a very good back-end high-leverage reliever. So hopefully he can help out a little bit. Apparently, Justin Martinez, he looks good looks good during his throwing program. Torey Lovello says the ball is sizzling out of his hands right now. So could get some help back this week for the D-backs bullpen.
Well, let's also talk about one other thing here. You have the two-headed monster at the top between Los Angeles and San Diego. Stephen Kolek threw a complete game shutout in Coors Field, of all places, in the 21-0 game where the Chargers beat the Broncos. The Chargers aren't in San Diego anymore. I don't follow football, sorry.
Close.
But if Kolek is a solid starting pitcher, they have a rotation of Michael King, who is having an all-star caliber season, Nick Pivetta, who lost today but has been terrific, Dylan Cease, who's had some good games, some bad games. We all know he's a talented pitcher. Kolek has pitched well. Randy Vasquez has pitched well. Their bullpen is absolutely untouchable.
Suarez nasty.
Suarez, you can't hit Suarez. Estrada, Adam, Matsui. This is a terrific bullpen they have. Quite frankly, I like San Diego's pitching more than I like Los Angeles's pitching. Yamamoto is very good, but he doesn't go deep into games. Glasnow, when they sign him, is in a full body cast. So Roki Sasaki has been okay, but not great. I'm starting to think, unless Los Angeles acquires another starting pitcher in the long haul, I think San Diego might be better.
Well, they still have one more guy, so they still got Blake Snell out there who's injured, so they could add another potential multi-Cy Young award winner to this rotation at some point.
But which Blake Snell is coming back?
That's a great question. We've seen him win a Cy Young in multiple leagues. So if you get one of those guys, he's a very yo-yo player throughout his career. But again, healthy Dodgers, it's been a little up and down right now, but if you still get to September, October, and all your options are Yamamoto, May, Sasaki, Glasnow, Gonsolin, Blake Snell, like you're still going to have 7 all-stars to choose from if you're the LA Dodgers.
But we saw that last year, and last year they were throwing 2 bullpen games a series. That's asking a lot. And I think, look at LA's lineup, you stack up with anybody, but it's not like San Diego's lineup is a slouch either. You could have a pair of 100-win teams in this division. And it's kind of reminding me what happened with San Francisco and Los Angeles in 2021.
Yeah, when looking at the Padres lineup, the biggest thing for them is probably the fact that Manny Machado looks like he's back to being Manny Machado because he had a little bit of a down year last year. And then the other thing is healthy. Tatis might not be the best player in that lineup right now. Healthy this season, Jackson Merrill offensively has looked like that best Padres player. So if you're in a lineup and all of a sudden Tatis is like your second best player, Machado's your third best player because Jackson Merrill has taken that big of a leap where he's really in the conversation with the big three, that Padres lineup is going to be able to compete with anybody if you get guys playing at that level.
And before we sign off, talk about the NL West on this. I talked about this yesterday, and we got to talk about it again today because yesterday the Padres scored 5 runs in the top of the inning, and this was coming after games where the Rockies pitching let up 13 runs the day before. I think it was just unbelievable, like constantly just letting up double-digit runs, and then before you know it, they lose the game 21-0. Okay. Yeah. And I want to just give the biggest, huge salute to the Colorado Rockies fans. Do you know what the attendance was when they lost 21-0? 38,423.
Wow.
38,000 showed up to Coors Field. I don't care, as I said yesterday, I don't care if it was free trip to Hawaii night. The fact of the matter is that 38,000 people at least bought tickets and coming after a 21-0 loss and an 8-game losing streak. Do you know what the attendance was? 34,000. Rockies fans.
Show up.
First of all, gotta respect that. Yeah. And Rockies management, put a team on the field.
Yeah, and it might be maybe brighter days for the Rockies in the near future. I'm sure Paul Holden's got a fire episode coming out with the Bud Black firing, but I think it's a good day for Rockies fans. I think Bud Black, I don't know how he's been a manager for 20 years, but again, as I always tell people, he has one of the craziest managerial resumes. He only has 2 90-win seasons in his 20 years.
Oh,
He's only made the
wait,
postseason twice.
I didn't know they fired him.
Yes, Bud Black
I just
is
saw that now.
gone. Yep. Yeah, that's why I keep bringing it up. I'm like, Paul Holden's gonna have a good episode today because Bud Black is gone, guys. It is a new day for the Colorado Rockies.
You know what? I didn't know that. You watched me figure that out. Holy
Lively.
cow.
Clip it.
There you go. I may have to drop this episode and then drop another one later.
Mhm.
Look at that. You got to see what your pal Sully looks like when he discovers that a manager just got fired. I had no idea that Bud Black got fired until you and I were talking about this just now. Well, for those of you who think I don't do enough research before the show, maybe you're right. Maybe you're right.
You're
Well, there you
locked
go.
in on
Well,
Dbacks stuff, Sully. You weren't
well, there
worried
you
about
go.
the Colorado
All right,
Rockies.
cool. Well, hey, wow, there you go. Hey, let's do the trivia question. Let's do the trivia question for today. And it's Diamondbacks related.
Ooh.
What pitcher won the first ever Arizona Diamondbacks postseason game? Got the first ever. Let me rephrase that. Who got the first ever postseason victory as a pitcher for the Arizona Diamondbacks? Because the Diamondbacks did lose their first ever postseason game, but they won a game in that series. What pitcher got the first ever Arizona Diamondbacks postseason win? Put the answer right down there, and we'll talk about that a little bit later when I post the bonus episode where I break down the firing of Bud Black that will come out sometime late on Monday. I'm Miller Thomas. Where can people follow your great show?
Yeah, streaming on all platforms, Locked on Diamondbacks on YouTube as well. Please hit subscribe. And please follow me on social media at CreatorThomas24 for the personal account on Twitter, or look up Locked on Diamondbacks, both Twitter and Instagram, for the podcast handle.
And you can follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter, or whatever they're calling it these days, on Instagram. I'm your pal Sully at Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram, and follow us right here on YouTube. Talking about the Diamondbacks, a confusing NL West, and I got to discover a manager got fired. This has been a Locked On MLB, Locked On Diamondbacks podcast crossover. He's Miller Thomas. I'm your pal Sully. Let's fist pump for old time's sake.